I lead to Niranjan. Niranjan is a co-founder, Cyclop MedTech, and he's going to moderate the session, next session. Niranjan, up to you.
Yeah, thank you, Raghu. So I think after this super awesome presentation talk by Dr. Shetty, I'm thrilled to actually moderate the second session, which is actually the first session of the unconference talk. So happy to introduce Abhishek Shah. He's the CEO of Wealthy Therapeutics, a digital therapeutics company which inspires and enables people to prevent, manage, and control their chronic health conditions. Prior to Wealthy Therapeutics, Abhishek co-led an early stage capital fund where he invested, built, and scaled health tech ventures in Asia, prior to which he held leadership positions in media conglomerate, a contract research and manufacturing pharmaceutical business, and a medical consumable business. Abhishek holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology and an MBA from Indian School of Business. Very warm welcome, Abhishek. Over to you.
Great, Niranjan. Thank you so much, and thank you, Raghuram, and all the esteemed panelists and keynote speakers. Very inspiring first session from ma'am and from Dr. Shetty. What I'll do is I'll quickly walk you through, the problem statement the way we see it, and I think it's something that everyone can at least think about, which is, when you start thinking of managing healthcare remotely, is really telemedicine enough? And what is managing care remotely? What does it entail? And what actually goes in doing for managing care remotely? And what I'll do is I'll spend a few minutes talking about this and then happy to take on questions, right? First and foremost, let's go back to first principles. We know that care in COVID has been compromised. Yet at the same time, the needs of the patient have only increased. When you take healthcare and you start splitting it up, it just goes back again to two things, right? There's acute care and there is chronic care. Today, COVID sits under acute, and all of us are neck deep in solving for that. And it's incredible to see how the ecosystem is coming together. But there is this other aspect of care, which is chronic care. And we want to see how healthcare or telemedicine is actually, as a subset, is managing all of this, right? And if you're starting to look at all the innovations that are coming online, either they already existed before or they're existing and coming up online now with innovators coming to the forefront, you're seeing a large boost that acute care is going to get from this. And a lot of innovations that are going to innovate for COVID are going to also continue to help acute infectious diseases for some time to come. Whether it is condition diagnosis, it is the treatment and follow-up. And what you're finding is that the role of telemedicine can work very, very well, especially in an environment in which you're not just looking to care for the patient, but at the same time, you're looking to keep the healthcare system safe and the physician safe as well. And needless to say that that is the need of the hour. Teleconsultations, however, do come with a couple of limitations. They allow for the virtual consultation. They allow for audio, video, they allow for payment, they allow for the physician to be in front of the patient, inversely the patient to see the physician and get advice directly from the physician. But when you're looking at the entire infrastructure that primary care, secondary and tertiary care has set up, what you're finding is a lot of pieces of the puzzle don't necessarily come as quickly. The clinical decision support that's necessary for a physician to make the right treatment decision stands compromised. The continual care for the patient, which in any case was missing or primitive at best, continues to be a challenge and especially relevant in certain conditions. Of course, remote patient monitoring, RPM, we've already spoken about this, is come front and center as a need of the hour. And let's not forget at the end of the day that all these—
Sorry to interrupt, Abhishek, but your screen is not visible. We are all seeing only white screen, unless you have made it intentionally.
No, I have. That's not correct. I'm not sure what's going on.
You have to put it on a slideshow, and maybe you have to switch your screen onto this.
Just a second. Can you see my screen now?
We can see your screen, but I think you have to put it on the slideshow. Yeah.
Tell me if it works.
Yes, we can see it now. Yes, it works.
So I don't know if you saw any of these slides, but let me. What did you see any slides except for the first slide?
No, we didn't.
Okay, great.
We are seeing the
But
slides for the first time, Abhishek.
okay,
So
sure. Going ahead. So essentially, where I was saying was acute can see a lot of value that comes from teleconsultations, but teleconsultations themselves come with limitations. And like I said, remote patient monitoring remains a need of the hour. Building doctor experiences that actually work for the physician, work for the HCP, work for the paramedicals remains an important piece, because doctor fatigue is a very critical part of this. And teleconsultation fails to solve for certain aspects of care, as we're imagining a world not just in COVID, but we're imagining a world post-COVID. And again, as Dr. Shelty mentioned, right, if we're innovating for a world that goes beyond COVID, it's important to recognize what the role of digital health is in that. That role, when you're seeing, actually has a very big component of chronic disease management in it. Today, the largest amount of deaths in this country still are attributable to chronic diseases. You have a very large burden of healthcare, which is incredibly, I mean, it's unfathomable, the amount of burden that chronic disease is facing in this country. And it just so happens that the COVID-19 risk factor is a lot more for these patients. So how can healthcare actually solve for it? How can telemedicine solve for it? When you're looking at this largest burden of healthcare, which actually leads to a lot of hospitalizations, it leads to a lot of ICU bed sort of utilization, and obviously a lot of deaths, and normal chronic disease management stands compromised. You're seeing that teleconsultations can solve for episodic care, but not necessarily for continual care. When you're seeing an opportunity for an episodic visit to happen, and that episodic visit now can be solved through telemedicine, one big thing to consider is, what about that time in between? What about the clinical decision support that the physician needs? What about the support that a patient needs for monitoring their vitals, for behavior change, for improving their self-management, for answering their questions, their medical questions, their FAQs, for building habits? All that support today is still a big piece of the puzzle that needs to be solved for. And you're seeing that teleconsultation can get some of the way there, but definitely not all of the way there. And when you flip it and you look at the doctor burden for chronic care delivery is absolutely immense. In COVID, it's even more amplified. The infrastructure is clearly shown to be wanting. There is only X amount of time that a physician can spend on a consultation. And during that time, a physician, which anyway was compromised with the amount of information that he had to treat the patient, now has even less, and has even less bandwidth. And the ability to influence the patient outside of the four walls of the clinic or outside of the teleconsult still remains really poor. And as a result of which, you're seeing poor adherence to protocols. And that is not just resulting in suboptimal care, but it is resulting in that the threshold that hospitals and the healthcare system need to manage going up. So where we came from was, can we actually look at a solution? What's out there that has already proven to work? And I'm looking to have this conversation about what's beyond teleconsultation. There is this area called digital therapeutics, which have been prominently being utilized in the West for some time, where they're evidence-based therapeutic interventions. They're driven by very high quality software programs. They are used to prevent, manage, or treat a medical condition, and are used as an augmentation to the standard of care. And the most important thing is they are built on the back of clinical evidence, and they have the real world outcomes to prove that they work. And what we found is, as we've started looking at this world of clinical outcomes, patient outcomes, doctor satisfaction, and overall affordability in care, what you're seeing is that there are clinically proven algorithms and protocols which can establish real world outcomes and safety and efficacy for patients that can play a role in this new paradigm shift that we call a post-COVID environment. And that paradigm shift is extremely critical, because you can actually improve the quality of life. You can actually reduce cost of care. Each and every digital therapeutic has a ton of elements in it, which are basically the same. There's always going to be a user interface for patients. There's always going to be something for the family member or for a accountability buddy. There's always clinical decision support for the physician. There's always monitoring and intervention dashboards for remote patient monitoring, remote patient interventions. There are connected devices integrated into this for monitoring patients better. And there's an entire slew of clinical intelligence algorithms that are advising and moving and nudging the different stakeholders in a regulatory compliant manner. But what's equally interesting is that it is built on proven medical guidelines. It has reimagined those guidelines to be delivered through a smartphone. And it has the combination of clinical intelligence, behavioral intelligence algorithms, and all of that is seamlessly working together to augment patient outcomes, because now you're taking every stakeholder. It could be the payer, the provider, the entire ecosystem, the patient at the center, playing a better role in their care, and self-management, and the family member or the accountability buddies. And all of them can play a much larger role in improving health outcomes, because part of de-stressing the healthcare ecosystem is empowering the patient to do more and do it in a safe manner. And that's where we're seeing that when you combine all these things that have already happened and have already proven within remote patient monitoring, within digital therapeutics, and all the very best that telemedicine and teleconsultation have to offer, you have a lot more pieces of the puzzle being solved for. Is it the perfect answer, and will healthcare always have near perfect patient outcomes? Absolutely not. But you can get a meaningful step forward. And as Dr. Shetty mentioned, it can exist even beyond a COVID environment, because it is a perfect storm to get these innovations out to market, but it can last and make a meaningful difference. And that meaningful difference has to continuously be shown with evidence. If it is type 2 diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, heart failure, asthma, oncology, doesn't matter. What all these solutions offer is the absolute truth through data. And through that data, as long as these solutions are able to show clinically significant improvement in outcomes, great safety patient profiles, lesser adverse events, lower cost of healthcare, better quality of life for the patient, and better clinical decision support, and better and lesser fatigue for the healthcare professionals, then these are the kind of innovations that should be inspired and enabled to be able to thrive in this larger ecosystem. Because with that, what you're finding is innovations like this, when combined together, can actually solve for all of the patient, not just one condition, but multi-morbidity, for all their time, not just the time they're in the clinic or at the time of the consultation, but all the time that they're actually suffering from this chronic condition. And by doing that, you're actually having lesser burden on existing stakeholders in healthcare, while increasing the value on healthcare, while increasing all the value creation of all the ecosystem partners that come with, and at the center, bringing the one person that actually matters, which is the patient. What you're able to do for the physician is get vitals, biochemical parameters, and all sorts of remote patient monitoring and other parameters, moods, medication adherence. You're able to build algorithms for escalations and alerts, which really can empower a doctor with data, with decision support, with analytics, and really help a doctor in a safe manner to do more for his or her patients, while at the same time making sure that they continue to thrive in a practice in their workflow that they're used to. And last but not least, we genuinely believe that technologies like this, teleconsultation, remote patient monitoring, digital therapeutics, digital care in general, can lower the healthcare system burden, can bring better safety to both patients and HCP, make sure that the capacity to serve IPD patients is not compromised, because you're maintaining and improving chronic patient outcomes.
You have 20 seconds more.
And remotely monitor and escalate only those that matter. That's it from my end. I thought to share this, and then happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so fantastic, Abhishek. I think you made a very compelling argument for digital therapeutics. And I think in the current COVID scenario, anything over and above, anything to help our already stressed infrastructure is definitely going to be a welcome measure. And I'm sure everybody is going to appreciate that. So let's take up a few questions. There are already plenty of questions. The first one is from Vikram Rai. He asks, with COVID-19 effect, there seems to be clear realization at the customer level that clinical point of contact comes with infection risk, do you believe that there will be more pull by customers beyond cities as well to consume digital therapeutics?
I think what COVID-19 has brought to the table is a realization in everyone's mind that healthcare needs to be a higher priority than they thought so. And I think that fundamental construct is allowing for a pull from the customer to ask for better quality of care, to get safe care, or to even access care for the first time, or look at healthcare very differently. So yes, we believe that there's a pull, but I don't think it's just limited to digital therapeutics. I think it's limited to anything and everything which is great quality care at the doorstep that the customer is in today. And the risk of infection will go away, but the demand for great quality care will not. And that demand is going to allow a spur of innovation, which hopefully is going to take healthcare to the next level.
Okay, thanks for that. And another one by Aarti. What's your opinion on collaborative and participatory health?
Healthcare is not one actor's job, right? And anything anything else would be foolish to say. So absolutely, that's the only way forward. But it needs to be somebody needs to own the outcome, right? At the end of the day, you can't have 5 actors and every actor saying I've done my bit, and nobody's owning. At the end of participatory health, the only metric that matters is better patient outcomes at an affordable cost at the time at which it's needed. So as long as there is an owner to the entire spectrum, and there's the equal amount of onus, therefore, for every actor to contribute, collaboration and participatory health is the right way to go.
Thank you. Here's one by Manish Sinha. What about facial expression monitoring? Do you think that will be helpful in digital therapeutics?
Absolutely. You're finding that when you start looking at patients' moods, patients' stress levels, patients' mental health, it's so powerful. And whether it's chronic or it's acute, mental health is a critical part of patient management. And as you're able to get more biomarkers to understand more about a patient's mental health, it could be their pulse rate, it could be their facial expression, it could be their their breath and analysis on breath from where you're getting mental health vitals. All of these things are super critical as you're looking at it. Mental health is just one use case. I'm sure there are many more.
I think we'll just take the last 2 questions. A very relevant question from Nidhi Kapoor from an Indian context. How digital therapeutics applies to rural area which are not that close to technology as compared to urban populations?
So the great part about digital therapeutics, and one of its biggest vices, is that it needs even a smartphone is good enough to be able to get there. Does that mean that you're solving for all of rural India? No. But at the same time, what this allows is accountability. So when digital therapeutics is accountable for outcomes, shows outcomes, and in a lot of environments, actually there's pay for performance on outcomes, there's a huge win. So there is a limitation on the smartphone, but as smartphones go through, rural India and all of India stands to benefit, because language is taken care of, multilingual is taken care of, visual intuitive interfaces are taken care of, and the patient can get access to world-class care without necessarily having to go to a city to get it. So I think it's extremely beneficial, with the one limitation that data and smartphones need to get to that particular customer.
Okay, I'll just take one last question from Shobik Sanyal. So does telemedicine, what about critical care through telemedicine and through digital therapeutics?
There are use cases, absolutely, but it's not a substitute. I mean, there's a reason why critical care requires very, very close monitoring between the machinery or the respective paramedicals or the physician. So I think there having digital therapeutics play an augmentation absolutely makes sense, but it is part of the care continuum. You cannot do without the normal critical care components. Again, I'm being very broad. There are specific use cases where there is more and less, but critical care is an element that still requires face-to-face to a large extent and on-site.
Okay, thank you so much, Abhishek. For remaining questions, Abhishek's Twitter handle is ABHINSHAH. I repeat, it's ABHINSHAH. We'll also put this in the chat window. So please do tag him. He can respond to the remaining questions. Once again, thanks for a wonderful session.